Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a wondrous, white-hot, Whitechapel wingding edition of Monster Party.
Monster Party.
Monster Party.
Monster
Slash, slash, slash.
Party.
Is it a monster party, Governor?
Stab, 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 slap.
What's all this then?
Hey, hello. Well, what is that over there in the corner?
Wow, what is that in the corner? Person speaking with a weird voice who is Larry.
Well, why don't you introduce yourself, sir?
You know what? I will. I am Matt Weinhold.
I am Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James Gonis.
Yes, it's Imperial.
Wow. You know what? I think there have been more authentic accents in an episode of Love American Style. Okay.
Oh, my God.
But we're having a good time. You know what? We're enjoying
We are.
ourselves. And it's ironic because what a horrible subject this is.
True.
There's a lot of history here.
There's a lot of history. Yes, yes. And hey, you know what? We want to get right to it. So the topic is one that I'm surprised we haven't done before
Yeah.
because it's rich with history. It made itself a part of music and the stage and obviously movies and television. And the topic is Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper.
Saucy
Yeah.
Jack.
Man, when we were first discussing this, there was a part of me initially that thought, well, how much is there? I know there's the historical element and there's a lot there, but we're
Right.
primarily, movies and television. And I for some reason, I didn't realize the sheer amount of Jack the Ripper material that's out there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It is.
And pop culture, it's all over.
Unbelievable. All over the place. And we needed, for this episode, someone who knows this subject very well and has some unique insights and maybe has some surprises for us. And who
Right.
would that person be, Shawn Sheridan?
Our guest is a filmmaker, author, movie historian, and longtime friend of this podcast. He has worked on many of our favorite genre movies, including Prison with Viggo Mortensen, Class of 1999 with Malcolm McDowell and Pam Grier,
Oh, yeah.
and numerous Empire and Full Moon cult classics such as The Lurking Fear, Trancers 3, Puppet Master 3, Dr. Mordred. He's also written many books, both fiction and nonfiction, on cinema history, classic Western tales, and the novel Nemo Rising, which follows the continuing adventures of Captain Nemo.
Yep.
He's contributed audio commentaries and documentary content for countless DVD and Blu-ray releases.
Oh, gosh, yes.
And he is joining us tonight because he's written the screenplay for a new upcoming full moon horror film called Quadrant, which involves Jack the Ripper-inspired murders. And the new film is being described as an unholy blend of steampunk terror and sci-fi slasher.
Wow.
Please welcome back C. Courtney Joyner.
Yay! Oh, our longtime friend
I
and
gotta say,
mentor.
guys, I am so impressed with all of the attempts at skeleton nags. It was just kind of one after another.
A skeleton nags comment. I like it.
Well, Jack the Ripper, it's a big subject, and
Yes.
of course, based on historical fact, but some of the
Yes.
facts get convoluted. When it comes to Jack the Ripper, there are so many things that we don't know.
No,
and
right.
and that is what I think also gives it its lasting power as a story.
Yes,
So
a true
these are-
mystery.
Yeah, think about it, guys. This all has to do with these horrendous murders that took place in 1888 between August and November. And there were 5 brutal murders in Whitechapel district of London. And these were so horrendous. And what was interesting is it seemed like these were done by one person. Then over the next couple of years, there were others. And it was just kind of assumed that it might have been the same person, but we don't actually know.
Lots
the
of
thing
theories.
And the thing that really blew me away as I was doing our research is the stuff that we know in like books and TV and films, it seems like, well, there's maybe about like 4 or 5 suspects. No, there were like 30. There were like over 30 suspects, and we don't know. We
And
do not know to this day.
A lot of suspects are ones that you wouldn't even think of. Like
No.
during the research, I didn't realize that Lewis Carroll was a
I know.
suspect.
Yeah.
And a ridiculous reason for why he's a suspect, because someone was applying anagrams to his work and somehow got "I am the Ripper" out of that.
Right, right.
You'd get a more direct connection with the Judas Priest song, but
I was going to say, yeah, Paul is dead. It's kind of
right.
Yeah. Well, Jack the Ripper was not the first serial killer that came into the public eye, but he's the most famous publicized serial killer. And the fact that it caused this media frenzy, and the letters to the police department, and it also, I mean, his crimes brought attention to the squalor and poverty of London's East End, which ironically caused it to be fixed up and cleaned up a lot after the murders. But this was at a time when, it was prostitution was rampant and alcoholism everywhere. It was the most
overpopulation.
Yeah, right. It was this horrible, horrible place. And in the midst of all this, these crimes had just got more and more gruesome and horrendous.
And yet, if there had been no such thing, we wouldn't have so many wonderful Hammer films.
True. True.
But there have been so many of these films and TV shows and songs and whatnot. But Courtney, I'd like to know how you came about doing this new version or a Jack the Ripper type film
Brand new take
for Charlie. And can you tell us more about that?
Charles Band.
I wish I could, say it's very mysterioso, but I was down at the office. Charlie and I were having a conversation about a new line he wanted to start called Pulp Noir. They had some titles and really not any storylines. And we were talking about the title Quadrant, and we were kind of starting to hammer around something that might be close to Clockwork Orange or something, or even, what the wonderful Ken Russell film that Patty Chayefsky wrote, and kind of say, yes, can you transform a person? And that was about as far as it went, just in the general conversation. Charlie went to answer a telephone call. I went into the coffee room, and there in front of me was a coffee maker that had been at the old studio in Glendale in a coffee room where I met Peter Sasdy, the director, who at the time was getting ready to do some children's movies for Full Moon.
Oh, man.
Wow.
So I suddenly went back and I said, Hand to the Ripper. Now,
Right. Sasdy directed Hands of the
Sure.
Right.
Yes, he did. Nobody really knew what I was talking about. It rang a bell somewhere, and they're like, oh, okay. And then that was it. And then I just kind of went and created this thing. And it just, all of the pieces just all fit together. And the thing was, and you can't ever underestimate this, I knew Charlie was going to direct this, and I knew that they were going to be in a, tight budget and tight shooting schedule and everything. But this also, by the way, was around the time that he got married again to Robin. And he was excited. He got very interested in this because we wanted to do something that was also had a lot of AI material, but not in the kind of, if you will, the normal way. We wanted to present dream sequences and out of body experiences through the AI, in contrast to the normal, if you will, quote unquote, look of the other scenes with the characters. And Tom Calloway was the DP, and he did a fantastic job. And it just all seemed to kind of click. And they also found some terrific young actors. Charlie would call me from location, just excited about how good these young people that he cast were. And that's not something he does very often.
Wow.
Everybody got excited.
Courtney, can you share the premise of Quadrant?
Oh, sure. It's basically about a young woman who seeks kind of back alley medical, shyster help from a doctor. where he has this machine that essentially you wear it like a helmet and it visualizes your deepest fears, but as physical entities. The idea being, if you were almost in a car accident and you blame the other person who was with you, you could beat them up or you could kill them or you could do anything you want to get rid of this phobia, and it would finally free you from the phobia. And this young woman comes to them because she has been haunted by the actual crime scene photos of Kathleen Wittes and Mary Kelly from the actual Ripper murders in Whitechapel. What the doctors don't understand is this is not the girl's fears. This is her sex fantasy.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
And they help her realize it.
Now,
Wow.
Courtney, you mentioned Hands of the
Help
Ripper.
her.
Yeah.
And Hands of the Ripper, of course, involved a young girl who was haunted by a killing by Jack the Ripper that she witnessed as a little girl, and she may now have those violent, murderous tendencies. So
Not just haunted,
Right.
possessed.
Yes,
Yeah,
right,
because he is in the Hammer film, he is her father.
right.
Yes. Spoiler alert.
Right.
It's
yeah.
revealed in the first 30 seconds. So.
Yes,
it
yes.
is.
But that's a cool movie, and that's a great springboard, though, to kind of, to do something with like a young female character with that kind of angle to it,
And it gets pretty intense with her. And boy, this young actress they cast, she's just terrific. And it's just again, I think everybody just got excited or they liked what I wrote or whatever it is. And so they brought their A game, even though it was, a small budget production and all of those things. But I didn't see anything. They would send me little frame grabs and things like that so I could kind of take a look at how the shooting was progressing. But I didn't see any footage. I didn't see any dailies. I didn't see anything until they sent me the trailer.
Wow.
And people can actually see the trailer right now, right?
Yeah.
Yes, actually,
Looks great.
We'll post the trailer for our episode. Now, Courtney, is this the first film in the, what is it called, dark noir?
Oh, the pulp noir?
Pulp
Yeah.
noir, is this the first one in this new series? Okay, so this is starting it.
Yeah, this is the kickoff. Yeah.
Cool.
So it's series.
Yeah, Charlie wants to do a whole new series of movies kind of with these darker, more melodramatic themes. And it wouldn't include the continuing characters from other films. So Evil Bong and kind of the comedy characters, the Dead Man and that stuff,
Right.
would not be part of this.
So this is for
Okay.
full moon features, pulp noir films.
Correct.
Cool.
And where can people go and see these? Or
Is this-
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know when it's actually being released?
Okay, we should be making I believe it's starting on Tubi, but I know some other folks have been chasing after it, but it should be about the second week of June. So coming up pretty quick.
Nice.
That's awesome.
It's a
Well-
nice summer slasher.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Put on your bathing suits. It's Ripper season.
Yeah.
So, Courtney, this is like one of a long list of Jack the Ripper films, and I mean they go back pretty far. I mean, from the silent era, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And,
I guess the most popular one or the most famous one, I would assume, from that period would be The Lodger.
absolutely. And the thing is about The Lodger that I think is still so wonderful. I mean, it's beautifully directed. We can never forget the close up of the Ripper's hands caught when his handcuffs are caught on the fence when
Sure.
the crowd is chasing him and he can't. But there's that magnificent scene. Of course, this was a silent movie, and Hitchcock and Alma are trying to figure out, okay, how can we get this idea of someone eavesdropping on what's going on in the apartment above them? And remember, they built the floor out of glass.
I love that.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yes, it's wonderful. So you could see him walking around.
Yeah, like they hear his footsteps creaking, and they
That's right.
they look up and they imagine. To me, that's amazing because that's Hitchcock experimenting, very extreme kind of experimenting visually with filmmaking when movies were still so new.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's something that you would not. I mean, just to have that vision and to be thinking already out of the box at that point in cinema history is so cool to me.
And the star, Ivor Novello, kind of made playing Jack the Ripper and variations of the Lodger really almost like his second career, because he then did a sound version without Alfred Hitchcock and kind of kept returning to it. But in this era of the early British sound films, and guys like Todd Slaughter and those actors, it seemed to me that if you will, the ghost of Jack the Ripper kind of settled over an awful lot of their projects.
Yeah.
Because also, too, when those movies were made, those crimes were not that old. In some cases, they weren't even 50 years old.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Well, and then you have these remakes, as you were just describing, that, they remade that film so many times. And the one thing that I always thought was a little odd, but maybe I guess it makes sense when you're doing a remake, and I'll try to dance around this, but, The Lodger has a pretty nifty twist ending.
Yeah.
And, you're led to believe something that isn't true. And then when they did the remakes, it was pretty on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought that was a little strange because I keep waiting for the twist and the twist never comes. It's like, well, I thought this guy was the Ripper the whole time.
And then it goes. Now, are you referring like to the version with Laird Cregar?
Yes. And Man in the Attic.
Right. Both for 20th Century Fox. The thing is, those at that time, the impact of movies like Gaslight, and of course you have the Lodger, you have Hangover Square, you have Ladies in Retirement. There were an awful lot of period thrillers, The Woman in White at Warner Brothers, that all kind of took their page from one another, but they were also, I think, very concerned, if you will, with the romantic aspect,
Right.
also, and tended to make that the focus. And I know on The Lodger, now here's a little trivia for you. Okay, The Lodger was shot by Lucian Ballard, the great cinematographer who was responsible for The Wild Bunch and True Grit and all that stuff later in his career. And but he was such a superb black and white cameraman and specialized in period films like that. Okay, he was married to The Lodger's star Merle Oberon.
Right.
Oh,
Go Lucian. And he was quite a devil-may-care guy. He looked like Stuart Granger. He was in a car accident and had to have plastic surgery.
no.
And was very concerned about the scars showing up when she returned to the screen. So Lucian Ballard sat with his wife and they figured out a way of lighting her to hide the scars. And that was with a series of very tiny spotlights that are now normally called Obies. After
No.
Wow.
Wow. Interesting. It worked too.
Yeah, absolutely it worked.
Yeah.
And it gives it a style.
Oh, sure. And then, things like The Man in the Cloak and whatever, even a movie like The Loves of Edgar Allan Poe, they always seem to want to throw in the idea of Jack the Ripper somewhere in the background, that somebody suspects something, or a Ripper-like murders going on, or what have you.
Right.
It was just in the consciousness. Now, Man in the Attic with Jack Palance was a true remake of the Lodger by
The Lodger,
Hugo.
right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
With a
Almost
different
beat for
ending.
beat,
Yeah.
including even some of the musical numbers.
Absolutely. That was, and now for Hugo Fregonese, who ended up in a kind of an odd thing because he returned to South America. He was married to Faith DeMurg, and he went back there to continue his filmmaking. But he directed Val Lewton's only color movie.
Which was?
Apache Drums, a Western at Universal starring
Right.
Stephen McNally. Yep.
Interesting.
And it's a wonderful movie and really interesting the way it's done with the color and the way that Val Lewton approached his horror movies at RKO. But you kind of wish that Val had something to do with Man in the Attic, which is, a fine movie and it's well made, but it's a kind of a perfunctory,
Yeah. Yeah.
But what are the things you can say about that movie, and I think a lot of other Jack the Ripper movies, is usually, for me at least, the thing that distinguishes them is usually a performance. And with Man in the Attic, Jack Palance, if you love Jack Palance as I do, that is like Jack Palance porn. I mean, it's he's so scary and creepy and weird and idiosyncratic, and it just all of it is just magnificent.
He's in so many scenes in the movie too. He really carries a lot of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, he does. And that was also during the time when he was making movies like Sudden Fear with Joan Crawford, and of course everybody was recognizing him from Shane and what have you. So kind of his image was being built, even though it was an image that he did not personally like.
Right.
Because it felt it typecast him to such a degree that it denied him leading man romantic parts.
Right.
But it did allow him to work forever.
It did.
Yes, true. Well, by the time we get into the 50s, I do like, it's maybe one of the most straightforward Jack the Ripper films, but it's very atmospheric and I like it a lot, which is the 1959 one written by Jimmy Sangster, Jack the Ripper. That's a fun one. And that has a lot of nice atmosphere. There's a lot of different theories about who the killer was, and different movies take different approaches as to who the culprit is. And this one goes more towards like the doctor idea, that it's a doctor. But it's fun, and it has some red herrings, and it has this kind of almost like AIP type gimmick at the end where like there's there's a final bloody shot of a pool of blood, and it's in color suddenly.
In color.
But it's fun.
Are you Mary Clark? Oh, yeah. That's Berman and Baker, who made that movie. They're the guys who are responsible for Blood of the Vampire, and they got very wealthy because they ended up producing the Saint television series. And their best film as producers is, for me, The Flesh and the Fiends.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, the Burke and Harry,
one of my favorite films.
Really good movie. And the atmosphere of it is exactly that Whitechapel, grungy, horrible, indentured poverty and what have you. And also the surprising thing is, if you do see the European version of the movie, is how much nudity is in.
Oh my God. Yeah. There is one scene in the backstage with all the dancing girls and they're all topless. It's like, whoa. This is 1959. This is the Continental cut.
Sean, were there two cuts? I thought there was like a racier cut.
Yeah, well, that's the European version, and the U.S. one was called Mania, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
But getting back to Jack the Ripper, there was a wonderful interview with Joseph E. Levine, and he talked about the incredible success of Hercules, and he attributed it to the remarkable advertising and comic books, and it was constantly on TV and radio and everything. I mean, he just went nuts advertising the hell out of that movie. And of course, it came home for him 1,000 times. So riding on that success, he does Jack the Ripper, which, according to Joe Levine, did not even make back its cost.
Really?
No.
Really?
Wow.
Total financial disaster.
You're kidding.
Because like you said, he cleaned up. I mean, basically he was responsible for importing all the Italian muscle man films like Hercules and redubbing them. And like you said, they became huge hits. So I'm surprised, because Jack the Ripper's, that's a good film. I'm surprised that it didn't make its mark at the time.
Didn't do a thing. Yeah. And especially considering when it came out, Hammer was very much dominant at the box office, so period horror and everything else. Now, when we wonder if, in fact, maybe what hurt it is the fact it was not in color.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So, there you go. I like that movie.
Me too.
And Jimmy Sangster worked for those guys a number of times. Have you ever seen the Hellfire Club?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That was them. And I think so was Fury at Smuggler's Bay. I think that was them also.
Okay.
With Peter Cushing. But here was, the great subject and everything else. My gosh, we're all. And in fact, nope. And
Wow.
The people
the
have spoken.
bounce off don't you think that like the bounce off of Jack the Ripper again, yes, there had been other serial killers, but not one that so captured the imagination, was all over the newspapers and everything else, that a movie like the Karloff film, The Haunted Strangler, also has, I think, overtones of Jack the Ripper.
Right, yes.
It's a serial killer movie.
Yeah.
True.
Well, and then there was the Boston Strangler with Tony Curtis, right?
Later, right?
Yeah.
Later, yeah.
Later.
There's an interesting show that was a spin-off from a British comedy troops show called The League of Gentlemen, and they did a show called Psychoville. A character in that show is a guy who is living at home with his mother, and he is obsessed with serial killers. So at one point, he has this fantasy, and it's a beautiful, you'd love it, Courtney, a musical number where it starts off with Jack the Ripper. It's got Mr. Christie from 10 Rillington Place.
Hmm. There you
Another
go.
true crime guy. But they also have the Boston Strangler. And so it's like
Wow.
all those. So I guess, do you know, was that a really big case when it came to the British public, the Boston Strangler?
I don't know that it was. It was so dominant here in the American press, but this was also at the time of the nurse killings in Boston, and all these other horrible things were going on, and police blotters were, I think, kind of filling up with these types of crimes. Don't forget, the Black Dahlia,
Right.
But I think what keeps people going back to the Ripper is not only the incredible savagery, which is just astonishing. Those photographs are they're just horrendous and horrible. But the sexual aspect of the thing is also just beyond the pall of what we would think of as human experience.
And that type of violence with his victims, if we're talking about the canonized victims,
Yeah, the
that
five.
it just got worse and worse and worse. Till by the end, I mean, his thing was slitting their throat first and then cutting them down the middle, taking out their intestines, putting them on the shoulders of the victim, and then cutting up the vaginal area. And it's just like the type of thing that, as you say, it boggles the imagination that a mind goes there.
Yeah.
The fact that it was never solved has kept
Right.
it.
Yeah.
It's just when you really stop to think about it, it's this guy running around doing this stuff. What was behind it? Like, what was the motive? Like, it's so.
It's interesting, Sean. You kind of touched upon this earlier too. During that time and in that kind of society, where this was happening it's the bad part of town, the scungy part of town, not in the upper crusty fancy place.
Right.
So in a way, it was kind of like, yeah, the police will get to it. They get there and they're horrified, but it's almost like, they really didn't. I don't know if it wasn't that it wasn't important. It was, but it was a scungy place. Remember, there's the famous line in Chinatown. Well, it's Chinatown, well, it's,
Right.
This is Whitechapel, this is the gross place. Of course, this kind of thing is supposed to happen. It did help though, Sean, help clean it up afterwards.
Yeah, well, it caught on, but the extremity of the crimes eventually did catch on to the public and became a big thing because of that, I think.
Yeah.
Right. But let's keep in mind too, we have these 5 victims that everyone kind of agrees, for the most part, that are attributed to the Ripper. But then there are a bunch of these other crimes that happened around that time that didn't involve necessarily always the level of brutality that these Ripper murders had. But they were also very savage. And it just goes to show you the type of things that were happening in this area. You add overpopulation and poverty and gangs and criminal gangs. And so there's so many opportunities for that type of thing to happen. And I'm assuming that the police were overwhelmed by a lot of this crime.
Well, you've got a couple of factors going on here. Number one, of course, the women themselves were essentially considered anonymous because, except for Mary Kelly, they're all prostitutes. So you have factor number one. Factor number two was that this story became international. And the crown and the royal family and all the rest were not happy about that, because suddenly Jack the Ripper became synonymous with London. And
Yeah.
expression to the rest of the world was something they absolutely despised. And remember, too, there was the whole theory that it was the royal surgeon trying to cover up another crime and all the rest of this stuff. And of course, too, this was the very beginnings. There was a wonderful show called Ripper Street, starring Matthew McFadden, that I became completely addicted to. And it does go to not only just the Ripper crimes, but also at this time, and this goes to the crime scene photographs and what have you, detection and the very birth of forensics. And that kind of thinking started really with Jack the Ripper. Only from the standpoint that these guys were standing around going, okay, forget about the background of the women. We have to start thinking about who this man is and how he behaves and why does he behave this way. Can we follow that line? And, Patricia Cornwell wrote that extensive book following her own research about the Ripper and who it might have been. And the royal surgeon thing followed the legend of Jack the Ripper for decades. Now they're saying no, that there was actually male DNA on this scarf. I was talking about this actually with Ron Borst, that was discovered, has been identified, and it was a scarf that was worn by one of the women. And of course, it was soaked in blood, but they did find male semen on it. And they ran the DNA, and it was a guy who had already been institutionalized, apparently by his family. And so the fellow that they were looking for, he had all the crimes were in the past, and he was already locked up, and was so mentally disturbed and, insane. He was in some far distant cell in,
but weren't there also some questions too about even that, which is that, when you're dealing with DNA, the opportunity for that DNA to get corrupted, especially when it's going through various hands.
Oh yeah, no, you're absolutely right, man. And that's the other thing too, is it just keeps opening it up, because of course too, there was he left the UK and he went to the United States during the West. Hence Jack Elam movie, A Knife for the Ladies.
That's an interesting movie.
Jack the Ripper out west.
Yeah.
Or he went to Gotham City as portrayed in Gotham by Gaslight. And that's the story I'm going with.
I love Gotham by Gaslight. I think that's absolutely wonderful.
It's great. And, both the comic and the animated version are both good. James, I think you would agree with me on this, right?
I actually have not seen them.
Really?
I'm going to check it out. Yeah,
I think you'd love it.
I'm sure I would. Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. And, we're kind of skipping over to Jack the Ripper. I mean, we would gotten them eventually. Jack the Ripper versus Sherlock Holmes, Study in Terror and Murder by Decree.
Which I love both.
Yeah.
Was Study in Terror, that was the first cinematic pairing of Sherlock Holmes and Jack the Ripper, right?
Herman Cohen produced it. Yeah, John Neville playing Sherlock Holmes, and very young Judi Dench.
Yes.
Wow.
I like that one too. It's color, but it's interesting because I've been watching a lot of these, for this podcast, and the Study in Terror has a very almost like a Hammer Amicus feel to it at times, and Murder by Decree, which I also love, directed by Bob Clark, that has a very grim, dark, bleak kind of 70s feel to it, And then you come to From Hell, which is much more very stylized, but they're all kind of the similar story. But it's really interesting to see the basic same story done at different decades, and different actors. I like all three films. I mean, in their various ways.
And Study in Terror, which has one of the worst ad campaigns in the history of anything. There's those posters
Well, it was Batman. The TV
Batman,
series was
yeah.
popular at the time, so they decided to make a biff bang pow. Look at Sherlock
Yep.
Holmes fight Jack the
Look
Ripper.
at Sherlock
Oh,
Holmes.
no.
Exactly.
Terrible.
Absolutely unbelievable. But now, Study in Terror was directed by James Hill, who directed Born Free.
Oh wow. Okay.
Oh.
But it's very, I can't remember if they shot it at Pinewood. I think they did. But it's very studio bound. It's very much
Yes.
shot on the, gorgeous studio backlot there in the UK. Whereas Bob Clark's movie, of course, was made in Canada, but it was done on locations.
Yeah. I love the
It
slow
looks
motion.
great, though.
Oh,
It
no,
looks
it's so
so
good.
great. You're talking about Murder by Decree, right? With
Yes.
Christopher Plummer as Sherlock Holmes and James Mason as Dr. Watson, and they're so good together.
They're great
I
together.
wish they did more of those. Quite
Yeah,
honestly,
a series. If they'd done a series, that would have been awesome.
That would have
Yes.
been great. And I thought it was interesting in that film too that the Masons are a central part of that,
Yes.
and how that became a thing to pair the Masonic Lodge with something so horrible as this.
But you know what, Matt? That's one of the things that I like about it. These
Oh, me
films
too.
in particular, because
They'll go
it's
there.
not just some single guy doing this thing.
Right,
There's
right.
more
Conspiracy.
to it. Yes.
Yeah. It's
and
really well
it's-
done.
So those are, I mean, I just really
Well,
enjoy
apparently
this.
a book.
But my dad was a Mason. I'm just saying. And he
Mine
never
too.
once brought up the Ripper at the dinner table. It never.
Your dads were Masons?
Yeah.
Do you say my dad's? No, I have what
Your dad.
my,
Yes,
No,
my
several
dad.
dads.
my dad and Matt's dad. We both have that in common, which we
Is
didn't
that
know
right?
until
Wow.
now.
Is that right? Yeah. And
See, we learned something new on Monster
yeah,
Party.
that's why James and I have this conspiratorial thing happening.
See, Sean, you and I,
When
we
you
get
guys
along
do
well,
your
man.
bullshit, James and I go and we, pull down the levers of society and get things to happen.
You guys put on your little
Fixing
skull
that.
masks.
Have you ever
and-
noticed our handshakes?
Yes, the secret handshake, secret Monster Party handshake.
No, but it's true though. I mean, I asked Dad for some kind of details, and he was totally he would not divulge anything. He was like, no, I can't talk about it.
But you're his
Wow,
son.
okay.
You couldn't say, "Hey, Dad, I'm your son. I got to get into the Masons."
Look,
And
he took it seriously. He was sworn to secrecy. That's
My dad was not. The idea of secrecy, my dad was like, yeah, I got nothing. Yeah, we had some meetings. It was all very pleasant. And this is the one thing I always remember is that for the Masonic Lodge on Christmas, they would have a special Christmas party. And so you'd go to the Masonic Lodge and they had a Christmas tree and every kid got a present. And they weren't shitty presents. They were good presents.
Okay.
Like I got cool, really big, intricate model kits and all kinds of stuff every year. So they were fantastic. I have nothing but good things to say about the Masons. As long as they give me presents, they can do whatever they want with society.
I don't think my dad was really quite that involved. He never took me to anything, but he still wears the ring. He still somehow identifies himself as a Mason that much.
Wow.
I have all my dad's stuff. My dad had this Masonic little, it's like a spinner with one half of the Masonic symbol on each side of like this black coin. And when you spin it, it would create the full Masonic symbol, like as a sort of an optical illusion.
That's cool.
It's
Well,
crazy.
In Murder by Decree, Sherlock Holmes finds the ring and he can flip over the top of the ring and underneath is this Masonic symbol. So that's really cool. That's wow.
But for people who don't know, can you give us like the Masons, who these guys are? They're like
fraternal order, and they're
like,
they've been around for a long time.
Straight line, and
look,
they build
from one
things.
side. It's like a fraternal order that's supposed to like transcend religions and that it's supposed to be this big brotherhood. Other people think it's a vast, like Monty Python would always do these jokes about like, you had to be a Mason to get a job, or you had to be a Mason to get into the higher echelons of society and government. And I'll bet that's true too. I mean, it's rich people hang out with rich people. And if you happen to be in the same club, then that helps. I don't know.
Right.
But getting back to it's cool when you put like, Jack the Ripper connected to this. That's what I thought was all neat.
My understanding is that in 1976, a book came out by a man named Stephen Knight. And this was maybe the first time that the whole Mason conspiracy was introduced to the solution of the Jack the Ripper murders. And that caught on. And it's since been debunked left and right. But From Hell, Murder by Decree, I mean, those were, I think, influenced heavily by that theory. And
It makes great for a story. Yeah.
It does. It really does.
If it's
Especially when you
fiction, you
bring
can
the-
tell me anything.
when you bring the royal family into the conspiracy, then it becomes a class thing. Then it's like, oh, Queen Victoria's in on this.
Yeah.
And, you know,
And it's a great conspiracy story. It's just, it really works well.
yeah, because the downtrodden are the victims, and,
Right.
you know, that just adds fuel to the fire.
And Murder by Decree also has an incredible cast. Also, you're talking also about David Hemmings, Donald Sutherland, and Frank Finlay and Anthony Quayle were both in A Study in Terror as well.
Yeah, and
They're
Frank
also
Finlay
in Murder by
plays
Decree.
Lestrade in both movies.
Right. And Genevieve Bujold, who has basically one scene in Murder by Decree, is phenomenal. Her scene is incredible and it's heartbreaking, and she's so good. She's kind of a pivotal part in that plot. Just great.
I've
Well,
always
it's
been a
also-
fan.
You know, it's a Canadian movie, and it's Canadian heavy.
Wait a minute.
You
What?
know, Sutherland, Bujold, Plummer, they're all Canadians. So, I mean, well, that had a lot to do with it. It was a Canadian-funded movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
mean,
young John Candy's in that too.
Well, there is an actress in it. I was like, wait, she looks so familiar. Oh, she was the school teacher in A Christmas Story.
Ah!
Okay.
Oh,
there you go.
All right, Courtney. Who's a Mason in your family? Sometimes we go on tangents.
Sorry.
Well, look, guys, don't sidestep television because, of course, Robert Bloch was absolutely
I know where you're going.
by Jack the Ripper. And, of course, it's one of the most famous Star Trek episodes, Wolf in the Fold.
Wolf in the Fold. Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good one.
Yeah, and Bloch's short story, Yours Truly, Jack the Ripper, of course, was redone, and they even did a variation of it on Hitchcock Presents. And
Thriller.
Or rather, yes, on Thriller, yeah. And so, you know, it just kind of permeated everything. And this idea of the conspiracy, I'll tell you who took this to the nth degree and got into a great deal of trouble because of it was Arthur Conan Doyle. In the very first Sherlock Holmes adventure story was a novel. That was A Study in Scarlet, which is the kind of the orphan of the Sherlock Holmes catalog, because Doyle sold it outright to a publisher who was not the publisher who did all the subsequent short stories and novellas. Okay, here is the deal. In the story, a young woman is killed in a ritual-like homicide committed by the Mormon Church.
Oh,
no.
Yes. And these Mormons are in London, and they start getting murdered by the girl's father. And Holmes, actually, he even goes to the United States and untangles this. Okay, this caused such an uproar that Arthur Conan Doyle actually had to go to the United States and read a letter of apology to Brigham Young's daughter.
Wow.
No.
Wow.
And it's why it has never been properly dramatized, because all of the references to the Mormon Church have been taken out.
Wow.
Wow, that's nuts.
But that's what he saw. And I'm sure looking all the conspiracy theories and who is behind the Ripper killings and how is all this done, I'm sure had big influence on him.
Yeah.
Sure.
So he picked another group to hang his plot on.
But
So I wonder if it was a matter of the fact that, well, the Mormons are for the most part kind of like an American thing.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
they're up there. They're in their own state over there in Utah. You know, they're not going to know about this.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure that's absolutely played a part. And which is why when they do bring the Ripper here to the U.S. and modern day, you know, the New York Ripper and Jess Franco movies and all of that type of stuff, you know, that's, again, it's kind of that fun thing like Jack's Back, that this is somebody, you know, outside of their own, you know, comfort zone, if you will.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you touched upon Wolf in the Fold. What's neat about that one is, for all of these ones that we're talking about, it's okay, so it's Jack the Ripper, he's this one person or whatever. But here, it's, okay, now we're in outer space and we're in the world of Star Trek. And we learn as this thing starts, it's like Kirk and McCoy, they go, hey, let's go down the planet. We're going to go and chill at this party planet and go to a couple clubs, and Scotty goes down and they're all hanging out, having a good time. And Kirk and McCoy go, hey, let's head on now. Let's go to another club. And they come outside and they hear a scream and they see Scotty over this woman that he just left with, and she's been stabbed. Yes, oops. And Scotty doesn't know what's happened, and of course he has to be put in jail. And what we learn is there's this entity, there's this Jack the Ripper entity that has been moving from person to person. But my favorite part is when the entity goes into the Enterprise, goes into the computer of the Enterprise, and it kind of takes control over the
Red Jack.
And John Fiedler.
Yeah, but it's a scary moment if you think about it, because it's this evil, horrific entity taking over this high-tech thing. But then, of course, you have Spock. He goes, all right, computer, figure out take the decimal down to the using pi or whatever. And
so it keeps the computer busy, right?
And you hear him go, no, ah! And then it has to keep going. It was really clever. It was really neat. And in a way, they don't actually destroy him.
No, they disperse him into space.
Right.
So the idea,
little particles. Yeah, Sean, the idea
that it's like it feeds on fear. But what I love about that is, that's another episode we watched again recently. It's ridiculous how much they stacked the deck against Scotty, because like 7 times he's found with like a knife in his hand over a dead woman. But I forgot the beginning of the episode. The reason they're on the planet is because Scotty is on therapeutic leave because he was conked on the head by some accident that happened on the Enterprise. And it was a woman technician who apparently did it. So apparently, at the beginning of the episode, Scotty's just mad at all women. it's like what? It's so.
I still think he did it myself. I'm pretty sure Scotty did it, because how many times I don't remember.
And it has been brought up that, look, although it takes place in the future, there are some funky things that are said, like Spock.
Well, yes, Spock's, I like to say
go ahead.
Spock is, hey, if Spock says it has to be true, right? Why is this entity killing women only? And Spock says, because women are more easily and more deeply terrified than men. Across the board, I guess. All female.
Tell that to my wife.
It was a different time. It was a different time in television,
but it's a great
history.
Yes, but it's a great concept to take the Jack the Ripper and put it in a sci-fi setting like that. It's great.
Okay, now look at Robert. Now I'm going to pose the big question to you guys. All right. Jack the Ripper, because Bob Bloch was a huge part of the, continuing the legacy in fiction and on movies and everything else. Why is it that is part of the public lexicon, but Ed Gein is not?
Why is Ed Gein not as popular?
Yeah, well, is it maybe the publicity part, the worldwide element of
I'm
it?
sure it is. Yeah. But
also, Courtney, we don't know the Jack the Ripper. It's a mystery.
Oh, there you go.
Don't know.
But
we know about Ed Gein. We know we've identified him
because Jack the Ripper became literally the boogeyman for everybody.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Also, Ed Gein was kind of co-opted into Norman Bates and Texas Chainsaw. So
right.
Different kind
the name
of killer.
Ed Gein, right?
True.
Courtney, do you know, when we're talking about the notes that the Ripper supposedly, and I guess a lot of them have been discredited, or a couple of them have, but the notes that were sent to the police, was that the first time that something like that had been done when it came to a criminal, that they would taunt the police like that?
In popular recorded stuff, yes. At least they always point to that. Sure, there were other written confessions that went to public officials and things like that over the years, but that predated Jack the Ripper. But that got so much attention because, of course, the newspapers reprinted them.
Right.
And so it included all of the London population. And it was like, I mean, this will sound like an absolutely idiotic comparison, but it was like O.J. Simpson. Absolutely everybody was talking about it.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Without TV, without radio, without any of that stuff at all. This was strictly through newspapers. Wow. And it just was and it was the talk of the continent, so much so that we found out about it over here.
Plus, also, weren't a lot of those letters still to this day may have been faked by journalists themselves?
Yes, that was a big theory, because any time any newspaper ran a Jack the Ripper story, the circulation exploded.
Right.
You know, it's funny, Courtney, I believe you had mentioned that, you know, when this happened, the royal family were not happy because it made people think of London and royalty or, you know, in a bad light. But still, there's this fascination. And when my wife and I went to London, I think, Sean, you did this too. There's
Yes.
an exhibit. We went to, it's the London Dungeon, and there's a whole sequence.
Yep.
And they show the gruesome photos and the whole thing. Yeah, we went to the 10 Bells too, the 10 Bells pub, which was where a couple of the last of Jack the Ripper's victims were last seen at this pub.
And I don't know if they did this with you, Sean, but they would escort, you know, it's really dark. It's inside this thing. And as you're walking down this corridor or whatever, it's only, you know, they only have like 14 or 15 people at a time. Yeah. And there's a tour guide telling this horrific story.
Yes.
And then sometimes the light will go out and you don't know. There may be a Jack the Ripper actor in the crowd with you that grabs someone, that makes someone scream. And you know, it's like I imagine that the royal family go, oh, that bloody London Dungeon, I hate that thing. It gives us.
It is ironic though when you think about it. I mean, it's like the most horrendous, vicious things were done to these women, and now it's become like a tacky tourist attraction. Hey, I mean, it's weird, but it's
look. I went to.
Of course,
it was one of those things too. Like when we went to London for the first time. How many historical things are there in London that we can go to? And we went to a lot of them. But one of the things, of course, that I insisted that we go to was the London Dungeon, a mini theme park about Jack the Ripper. And I'll tell you, my experience there, my experience there was that I enjoyed it, but it went on. It was a long experience. And some of those monologues could have been, you know, the Ripper could have ripped some lines out of the script.
Right.
What's with you? You don't like learning about history?
No, I love it. I just don't. Yeah, I don't need to see someone's acting reel in its entirety.
Can I ask you a question? You guys don't talk enough to each other during the week?
No, we don't. Courtney, we always have time for you.
Oh, well, thank you. No, because I did it too. But just to add to my story, I went to that really great Christmas ornament store that's right across the street that's been there for like 150 years.
Okay.
So I went there and bought some wonderful Christmas ornaments, including a beautiful life-size cheeseburger that the very snooty salesman who'd probably been there for 50 years said to me, and I quote, you understand that's not for eating.
Nice.
So right at home in London there. Yes. But you're absolutely right. It is a long slog. I almost wanted to take the very specific Ripper tour, but I didn't do it. Although we did visit the pub. Because, you know, the layout, as you know, of the streets is now completely different than it was
I imagine
homicides were committed. So I think there is isn't there a tour where you actually are in the underground and you're following the original route, I guess?
I think so, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he will not stay buried.
No, he's the dark gift that keeps on giving, apparently.
Yeah,
I mean, it's one of those things where it is amazing. Like doing the research for this, I was shocked at how many TV shows, and you mentioned Ripper Street, and there's the Michael Caine BBC thing that they did.
Yep.
I do have to say that, though, my favorite one of all was from 1979 with the screenplay and directed by, it's his first directing film, Nicholas Meyer doing Time After Time
Sure.
with Malcolm McDowell and
So
David
great.
Warner. If you haven't seen this film, listeners, this is one I would definitely recommend. First of all, we all know Malcolm McDowell as being he's a bad guy in a lot of these films, but he plays H.G. Wells, a writer, but he's also created this time machine. And what happens when one of your friends who is a surgeon, is trying to escape being, there was a murder committed, and his friend comes in and escapes through this time machine going into the future. And you have H.G. Wells basically having to go into the future to catch Jack the Ripper. And David Warner's so good. He's such
Always.
a great Jack the Ripper. This film really I was blown away with Malcolm McDowell. There's a very touching scene where Malcolm McDowell is literally on his knees begging for the life of this woman that he loves. And it's so touching and so powerful. But, it was filmed, a lot of it is filmed in San Francisco, where Matt and I are from. And it's great to see some of the places where they go to shoot. And at the time it was state of the art, but it's not a big budget film, but it's a wonderful film using Jack the Ripper as like a main character.
Yeah, fantastic.
Nick Meyer's thought process here was so precise and excellent because H.G. Wells did think in terms of utopia.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he had hoped for the future, what he kept seeing in his mind. If these certain things happen, then man will achieve this. And there's that incredible moment in the film where David Warner says, I have found utopia. It is violence. This is where I belong.
Yes.
Yeah, he's
Yes.
watching. He's flipping the channels on the TV, and he goes, back where we came from, I was a freak. Here, I'm an amateur.
That's such a great
It's like
line.
it's also great because it shows the disillusionment of H.G. Wells now. Like, this is not my utopia. Plus, I've let Jack the Ripper come here, and it's so good.
Absolutely, just tremendous. But we were talking before about the hammer because of Hands of the Ripper, which I absolutely adored, obviously. But let's not forget Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde.
Of course.
One of my favorites. One of my favorite films. It really is.
It really is.
We've talked about that, we've always wondered what happens if, you're right in the middle of something as you're the Sister Hyde and whoa, and things go back to where they were normally.
But aside from all of that, it's a perfect blending of Dr. Jekyll, Jack the Ripper, and Burke and Hare. Like, he definitely combines all those elements perfectly to the point where, like, if you had never heard of Jack the Ripper or Burke and Hare or Dr. Jekyll, like, this is a great movie of these characters. Like, it's just it's so good. It's so good.
And Dr. Jekyll, let's be fair, in that movie, he is the best friend a guy could have.
And this is the Ralph Bates, Martin Bestwick.
And all brought together by the great Brian Clemens, who was incredibly talented.
So, Courtney, do you know why Brian Clemens didn't do more Hammer productions? Because Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde and Captain Kronos are two of my favorite Hammer films, period. Yeah. I mean, they're so good. And he brought fresh life and ideas into Hammer at a later time in Hammer's history. It's like I wanted him to do like 5 or 6 more Hammer films.
I would say blame the banks. The English tax system had changed. The Eady plan was running out. Hammer did not have their standard distribution deals anymore. Captain Kronos was released by Paramount with Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell, and they picked it up for pennies, and it didn't do very well. They had wanted it to start a series, but Hammer was really scrambling at this point for financing, and they were trying things like Lust for a Vampire through EMI, and then the super cheapo stuff like Scars of Dracula and this type of stuff. And so, unfortunately, the company was just kind of running out of juice. But also, on the plus side for Brian Clemens, he was so incredibly successful in British television that probably the money that he wanted to continue with Hammer, even though he loved the opportunity to direct, might have been just beyond their reach. Because
Yeah.
remember, the screenwriter, Golden Voyage of Sinbad, and he was getting bigger assignments. And I think that's kind of all those elements kind of came together, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember, this is the early 70s, but on the back page of Famous Monsters, they ran an ad that said, "What will Hammer do next?" And you could write in suggestions. Do you remember this?
I don't remember this.
Yeah. It was on
Wow.
Famous Monsters, and I'm wondering if Hammer was going, "Hey, man, we need some help. We need some ideas. We need some money."
It was
you
all
remember this?
nonsense because they knew what they were going to do. Vampirella, which was owned by Warren.
Right. But that didn't
there you
happen,
go. Of
Courtney.
course.
It didn't happen.
That, and wasn't
they
there like
thought
a
it
Loch Ness
was.
Monster movie too? Yeah.
We had Barbara Lee and Joe Moe on, and she explained the story of how Carreras, they none of the guys could make the deal. Everyone wanted more of a percentage. That's the story that we hear.
What Jim Warren told me, we were out to dinner and we started going into it. And he said the big problem for him with Mike Carreras, they got along just fine. Of course, they're out carousing and doing all that stuff, was that the screenplay that was written by, I was never a big fan of this guy's work, unfortunately. He wrote Blood from the Mummy's Tomb and The Oblong Box. And
that's
I'll
no
think
good.
of the name here in a second. But he had written the script. It was disliked intensely by Warren and others. And you know that Jim Warren sat down with Carreras and said, "Look, I know who we should bring in at least to map out the story because this does not work at all." And it was Archie Goodwin is who he wanted to do it.
Oh, wow.
And he would have been brilliant. Archie Goodwin was just astonishingly talented, and he would have done a fantastic job. And remember, too, this is when Gary Conway and Roy Thomas and all those guys are getting movie writing deals with Dino De Laurentiis and everybody. So it wasn't like it was completely out of the box. But Carreras, I don't think that he ever was really in sync with the idea of doing a comic book adaptation.
Okay.
Interesting.
Plus, there was the money, but the money, because I think the distribution deal, if I'm not mistaken, was going to be through AIP, correct?
I think so.
Yeah, that I'm not sure about.
And so this is the time of the vampire lovers and all that stuff. And so it's like, boy, that money was going to be very constricted. And when you had so many people who were declaring themselves producers and wanting a piece of it, what was going to be left over to make the movie?
Right.
Yeah.
It's too bad. It's too bad.
No, it really was too bad. And I think it was just all of these elements just combining to, sink the project. And Mike Carreras he was trying to get the Loch Ness Monster movie made at Toho and all that stuff was going on. And as a matter of fact, as a little plug for something, I wrote the documentary on David Allen that's on the multi-disc set of the Primevals. Which is
I'm so glad that's finally coming out.
Yeah,
finally.
me too.
And, we really worked hard on this thing. Jeffrey Combs narrates it, by the way. It's
Nice. Great.
And we go into a very interesting period before Charlie Band, stepped in with David and to get the thing made when David Allen was dealing with Hammer.
Really?
How that got all screwed up. We had the paperwork, everything. It's really fascinating because everybody forgets that David worked on When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth.
Right.
That's how it, at the time, Raiders of the Stone Rings fell into the hands of Mike Carreras and Roy Skeggs and everybody who was running Hammer at that time.
And wasn't there a project called like Zeppelin versus Pterodactyl too?
That's what it turned into.
Okay.
That was David Allen's movie.
Wow.
So Primevals, was that always a finished movie that just was never released?
Oh, no. David was able to shoot some of the live action stuff in Romanian, in the Romanian Alps, and then came back here and started on the extensive, and oh my God, the sheer volume of animation cuts and stop motion stuff in this thing was absolutely unbelievable.
Wow.
Just how labor intensive it would be. And he got cancer and died.
That's so sad.
And so the film, there's the live action stuff, and about half of the animation is completed. But then what? So all of these years later, thanks to Chris Endicott and all these people who worked for David and wanted to see his project through, they're the ones who saw it through with Charlie picking up the tab.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
That's so
awesome.
great.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not about Jack the Ripper, but I'm glad we touched.
No, it's not.
It was
Yeah,
a
it's
tangent.
important.
But hey, we're all allowed to go on tangents here.
That's right.
That's
it's
true.
tangent party.
No, who among us has not gone on a tangent, right, James?
Of course,
Tangent party, tangent party.
tangent party.
I think the abominable snowman in the Primevals is a Freemason.
Well, you were talking about the Loch Ness Monster, and in Amazon Women from the Moon,
That's right.
what did we learn?
That's right. Yes.
The Loch Ness Monster is Jack the Ripper.
That's right.
Yep.
That was on the Henry Silva hosted the segment called Bullshit or Not.
So it's funny. Here you guys bring up a little bit of comedy, and Matt likes comedy.
Do I know?
There is a moment when there are movies that are all about Jack the Ripper. Sometimes they just mention it. And there was a moment in the film from 1984, This is Spinal Tap, when they're talking about, and so if you're not familiar with this, first of all, you have to see it.
One of the greatest comedies of all time.
I mean, you watch it, it's about this rock group, and these guys really exist. No, it's not real. But there's a moment when the two main characters are talking about, the musical that they were trying to do. It was about Jack the Ripper called Saucy Jack.
Saucy Jack, yeah.
And he did his, "Oh, you looking out, Saucy Jack?" And he started to sing some of the songs from this, and it was so funny. And I thought, look at this. Even Jack the Ripper makes it in Spinal Tap.
That's
How
right.
about that?
Right.
And by the way, so that is just kind of a reference in the movie. So it's at the end of the movie where they've had this horrible tour and they're gonna hang it up. And they're talking about all the projects that they wish they would have done. And that was one of them. And it's, you're a naughty one, Saucy Jack.
Saucy Jack.
You're a haughty one, Saucy Jack. And so years later, and it's not actually part of the Back from the Dead Spinal Tap album, but it was I think it was like a download or something that you could get. For spinaltap.com, you could download the Saucy Jack song. So they actually made the song.
Nice.
And there's a line in there where it says, "When the street lamp gaslight flickers and fails, then you see the last light glinting off the entrails."
Nice.
That's poetry.
My
If
gosh.
you're familiar with Spinal Tap, you're familiar with the freeze frame at the end with the very pretty girl and the thing. Okay, I used to go out with her.
No.
Really?
Oh, I was in love with her.
Her name is Natalie.
You went out with her?
I kind of went from going out with her to becoming her manservant somehow.
Oh, you're my new hero, Courtney.
That's marriage.
You're my new hero.
So that went on for a little while. But no, because now here we talk about, again, going all the way back, the Jack the Ripper influence. What about Mac the Knife? There it is. There's an operetta with his most famous song is about Jack the Ripper.
That's right.
Yeah. Three Penny Opera.
Penny Opera, absolutely.
That's crazy. It's amazing how many ways it can be interpreted. Like you mentioned, just Franco made Klaus Kinski played Jack the Ripper in a pretty bland film. Actually, he's a crazy doctor and he has flashbacks of his mother who was a prostitute. But it's not very good. Paul Naschy made a Jack the Ripper film, kind of like a Giallo inspired modern day Jack the Ripper movie. Not very good.
Sean, wasn't there Anthony Perkins one?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I forget
that
the
one's
name.
crazy.
That
Okay,
one's actually kind of fun.
it is. If you're in the right frame, it's called Edge of Sanity.
That's it.
1989. And it's actually one of the producers was Harry Allen Towers. It's as if it's as if Ken Russell directed a music video that starred
Right.
Jack the Ripper and Anthony Perkins. It's so
Yeah.
bizarre because it's supposedly set in like 1880s London, but there's like characters that are straight out of like a 80s new wave rock video.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
bizarre.
Wow.
It's very gory and sordid and violent. And
Do you mean when Anthony Perkins goes to the bordello and turns to the girl and says, "Let me see your asshole"?
yeah. Well, there's a scene where he forces like a female and a male prostitute to have sex while he watches and masturbates to it.
Yes.
But
What's
it's
wrong with
Anthony
that?
Perkins. It's mostly a Jekyll and Hyde story, but when he
Yes.
turns into Hyde, he becomes more like a Jack the Ripper. But Anthony Perkins, when he turns into this Ripper character, he basically becomes Iggy Pop.
It's very entertaining. I'm sorry,
It's
but
great.
his-
No, I
when
agree.
he
It's-
when he's Mr. Jack, it is fabulous.
yeah.
it
has to be
I'm
seen.
sure
to be
not in the
believed.
way that they would have liked, but maybe
Probably not.
I don't know.
See, guys, I've seen clips of it. I haven't seen it all the way through. Should I see this?
Yes.
I say yes.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, here's my weird connection to that. I was the screenwriter of the Fu Manchu movie that Anthony Perkins was going to star in when he got for Harry Allen.
What?
You guys didn't know that one.
No.
When was this? He was going to do. Wait, he was going to play Fu Manchu?
Yes, he was. It was going to be done back
Wow.
to back with the Robert Englund Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, okay.
I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
And it was Tony Perkins, Christopher Lee as Nayland Smith.
Oh my God! Well, that I
You
could see.
are
That's actually
kidding.
perfect casting.
Yep. And then I had a meeting with Harry Allen Towers, and who all else did he have lined up? I think Oliver Reed, of course, and Honor
Oh my-
Blackman, and I think
Oh my
Edward
God.
Jones and a couple other people. And I still have somewhere a outline with a Harry Allen Towers under his pseudonym for the beats to the story. And then Tony Perkins passed away.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah. Wow.
We could have had an Anthony Perkins Fu Manchu. Wow.
Yes.
That's nuts.
And
That's
for
nuts.
a very brief period, because Steve Carver was going to direct it, Harry thought about doing it in South Africa, modern day, with David Carradine as Fu Manchu, and thank God that never happened.
what?
Whoa.
Wow. The Lost Fu Manchu projects.
Wow. See, sometimes things happen for a reason. It's just, I always want you to make some money. It's a balancing act.
Right. Wow. That's crazy. One of the most ridiculous versions of a Jack the Ripper story was from 1985, a TV movie written by William F. Nolan called, it's under two titles, Terror at London Bridge, and also called Bridge Across Time. And get the cast for this: David Hasselhoff, Stephanie Kramer,
Oh.
Adrian Barbeau, Randolph Mantooth, Clu Gulager, and Rosemary. I'm not making that up.
It's got everything.
It's
They showed it at the New Beverly, and Clue and I went, and we sat there. We had to talk before, because this was when the London Bridge had been rebuilt in Arizona.
exactly Lake Havasu, and so all the bricks were the original bricks were moved to build a bridge in Arizona. And the premise of the story is that one of the bricks, their last brick to be put into the new, was possessed by the spirit of Jack the Ripper.
Of course.
So he and some girl like cuts her finger and blood drops on the brick. So of course he
Sure.
manifests and becomes Jack the
Right.
Ripper again.
Oh, my.
It's so ridiculous, but enjoyable if you're in the right frame of mind.
Wow.
Well, if we're talking TV and we're talking science fiction, there was a show that is based on the movie Time Cop, and the show was called, get this, Time Cop. And a very, very short-lived series. I think they aired 9 episodes and there were 13. So at one point they went, this has to stop. But the first episode is called A Rip in Time. And the protagonist, Jack Logan, goes to 1888. And he's after, there's this fellow time traveler, another renegade time traveler. who has killed Jack the Ripper, who in this incarnation is William Gull. And he kills him and then takes over for Jack the Ripper. So now he gets to be Jack the Ripper. And so Jack Logan has to go and stop him. But I have a special connection to this because his first victim, who is in the show, is Catherine Eddowes, and the actress who plays her is Belinda Weymouth. And Belinda Weymouth is the wife of friend of the show, Jake Johansson.
No way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm watching this, and all of a sudden, I put this thing on, and Jack's running around, and then I see her, and I'm like, wait a minute. And then she's got this whole scene. She gets murdered, and it's not like she's a giant part of the episode, but she's very good. She does a really nice accent, and she could have been a scream queen because her screams are excellent. But
Wow,
it was
that's
weird.
awesome.
It's just like between all of us, our connections to everybody else, it seems, are so close. How does this even happen? Like
Right.
we're researching Jack the Ripper, and like we're supposed to go out with them in a week, and there she is, right there, being murdered by Jack the Ripper.
Wow.
So in a
6
strange
degrees
way,
of Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper brings people together.
That's right.
That's so
Wow.
awesome.
That's crazy.
James, I want to know, did you have a favorite Jack the Ripper film, or was there something that you liked? What was your favorite Jack the Ripper piece?
Well, I'm with you on Time After Time, but From Hell, the graphic novel, not the film.
Yes.
If the Johnny Depp movie hadn't been based on the graphic novel, then I would have liked the Johnny Depp movie better.
Mhm.
But the graphic novel is a very dense and immersive experience. And there has been talk of producing a long form, like a streaming series from the graphic novel. And if nothing else, do yourself a favor and invest in reading it. It's a challenging
you.
read. It's totally, it's completely immersive. And I don't think Alan Moore was all that concerned with authenticity. I think he just wanted to find enough in the lore to tell the story he wanted to tell. So he went with the whole Mason conspiracy, but it worked. It worked for that, and it's a wonderful, holistic, Alan Moore experience, and definitely worth the read.
Okay, yeah, I've not read the graphic. No, I did like the movie. I mean, it is, like I said, it's very over stylized. It's a little ham-fisted at time, but it's a good attempt, I think, at that story.
For the performances.
Yes.
I mean, there's so many amazing actors in that thing. Courtney, what did you think of that film?
Oh, I like the movie very much, but I don't know if this isn't even specific enough, but it kind of gets across. It trips over its own laces, if you know what I mean.
Yes, yeah.
It gets burdened by itself.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if that was because they wanted so much to be included, or if just reducing Alan Moore was a problem, or what have you. I don't know, but it becomes a slog.
Yeah. I agree. I recently, I actually just tried to rewatch it for this show, and I couldn't get through it.
Really? So we watched it too. I enjoyed it.
I do enjoy that one. I like all the little things that happen and where it goes and the coins on the eye. I mean, I like all that, the opium, and I mean, I'm not saying I go out and do opium. I'm just saying that in the movie, it's it's
as
neat.
someone who has done opium, yes, it portrays that very well.
Well, also Aberline, who Johnny Depp portrays in it, and Michael Caine in the miniseries from 1988 was supposed to have been an alcoholic, and Johnny Depp now is a morphine addict. But from what I've read about Aberline, he was not afflicted with any addiction. So it just becomes sort of cool to say, this investigator is plagued with his own demons. That's like, okay. But I think the Hughes brothers, before they made From Hell, were watching Once Upon a Time in America and saw De Niro in the opium den. It's like, oh, that's cool. Let's do that.
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
With all your research and stuff, a show I never knew if they ever did a Jack the Ripper episode of the Time Tunnel.
Oh, yeah. I wonder.
I don't believe.
Do you think they would have, though? Yeah.
I don't believe they did. But Sean, didn't they do one for Kolchak the Night Stalker?
Oh, you kidding?
Oh,
Of course.
yeah, the first episode.
The very first
Yeah.
episode, which is funny because if you think about it, it's a little bit like Wolf in the Fold, the Star Trek episode,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
the spirit or entity of Jack the Ripper
Yeah.
through time, continuing the killings. He like does these ritualistic killings across different decades. It's really well done.
It's more, I would say it's more like Yours Truly, Jack the Ripper.
Right.
Wolf in the Fold, he's like an entity where Yours Truly, Jack the Ripper, he's like has a deal with the devil kind of a thing. And what I love about that Night Stalker episode is that apparently when you're Jack the Ripper, you have the strength of the Hulk. When he smashes through that jail cell, that is some good TV.
I know. It's awesome. It's like, what the? Is he a super Jack? Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
He's like bionic Bigfoot.
He is totally. One film that I had always heard about and never saw until recently for this podcast, which is just talk about a slog, is 1988's Jack's Back. Have you guys seen that?
I have not seen that.
It's strange. It's lame. It's just kind of like this. It's a contemporary 1988 murder mystery where there's these killings and they're kind of like Jack the Ripper and James Spader, who like literally sleepwalks through the whole movie. He's playing twin brothers. One of them could be the killer, but it's bad.
But Sean, it's not literally Jack the Ripper though, is it?
No.
It's like,
but it's like he's emulating the killings of Jack. But it's like Robert Picardo's in it. He's like investigating the crime, but it's just it kind of goes nowhere. It's lethargic and just kind of boring. It's just not very good.
Wasn't Jack the Ripper also on Fantasy Island?
Yes.
There's an episode called With Affection, Jack the Ripper. So from my research, the guy who wrote it, Don Ingalls, also wrote a Sixth Sense episode of the same name.
Oh, okay.
okay.
Yeah, I think that one, the Fantasy Island episode, Matt, I think has Victor Buono as Jack the Ripper.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But I love Victor Buono in anything, but
yeah.
That goes to like the Laird Krieger thing. For whatever reason, I never could see Jack the Ripper as being someone heavy.
right.
Yeah.
Because he eluded the police. He, had to run through those alleys.
Yeah.
Things
Yeah.
like that. I just never saw it. And I always thought also somewhere in my memory is jangling around. Didn't they do a Wild Wild West episode with Jack the Ripper in it?
Did they?
Probably.
Yeah,
It just seems
surprised.
likely.
It just goes to show you that Jack the Ripper can pop up anywhere.
Yeah. And as a rock and roll fan, there are so many songs with Jack the Ripper. And I mentioned the Judas Priest one, but there's a famous 1961 song called Jack the Ripper by Clarence Stacey, but I prefer the 1963 version by early British shock rocker Screaming Lord Sutch. Thin Lizzy did a Jack the Ripper song. I mean, Morrissey has a wonderful Jack the Ripper song.
What's it
Nick
called?
Cave it's called Jack the Ripper.
Oh, okay. Easy enough.
Mhm.
Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds have a really creepy Ripper tune. There's also a Motorhead song called Jack the Ripper. There is, I'm a big fan of Japanese metal. And so there is a performer and he had a band and his name is Saikimatsu. And Saikimatsu did a Jack the Ripper song. And I think it's my favorite. So if you're into this kind of stuff, check that one out. But I mean, obviously metal, I think sort of lends itself to, horror themed songs.
Yes, true.
But with the Thin Lizzy song, Thin Lizzy did the song called Killer on the Loose. And there's some controversy about it because the story is about Jack the Ripper, but at this time that they released the song, the Yorkshire Ripper was committing all these murders and killing mostly women. And people had a big problem with Thin Lizzy putting out this song right at that time and thought it was tasteless, which I think from what I could research that it was sort of done on purpose to be sensationalist. But AC/DC had a similar thing that they deny, but they had a song called Night Prowler. And that was supposedly referencing the Night Stalker killings, Richard Ramirez.
In LA, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, once again, Saucy Jack, go for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I'm not familiar with any model or toy that there was Jack the Ripper. I found, there's plenty of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hydes, but I haven't found I don't have any toy of like little guy with a knife or something.
Courtney?
Not that I know of. And I would say between the five of us, I think we would have something.
Yeah.
Right.
Wasn't there, Matt, wasn't there, those slightly stylized classic monsters from McFarlane?
Yeah.
Didn't they put out, I think they maybe it was a Jekyll and Hyde.
I think it was a Jekyll
no, you're thinking
and Hyde.
of Mezco.
Mezco.
And so Mezco did all the silent screamers, and that was they did Nosferatu, and they did Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and the Golem, which is my favorite. That's a great toy.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think they ever did a Ripper. I like in Hands of the Ripper, they portray the Ripper as being like his face is screwed up. There's a Phantom of the Opera quality to him.
Yeah, he's scary.
Pock marks and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing with what, my feeble brain, I was kind of pleased with it, is that I think our movie and Hands of the Ripper are the only two that I can think of where the crimes are actually committed by a woman.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool, right?
So it's shocking. The first time in Hands of the Ripper, where she commits her crime, one of the things that stands out for me in that film is I do think the murders are handled quite well. They are truly horrific. And even the effects, I think, are quite nice. Before we wrap this thing up, if I could do a quick little lightning round of some ones that I found that I think
sure, I have a couple
should
more
know about, because we just had Kim Newman on the show, and Kim Newman's Anno Dracula series starts with Dracula and Jack the Ripper. Those novels are amazing, and I used to read a comic way back called Blood of the Innocent, which was created by Ricky Shanklin, Mark Hempel, and Mark Wheatley. And it came out in 1985. And it was only a few issues, but it was great. And it was also Dracula and Jack the Ripper. And I think those you can get pretty easily if you look for them on eBay. I think they're still out there. I would also like to point out, we were talking about Jack the Ripper in science fiction. There's a Babylon 5 episode called Come the Inquisitor.
Right, Gina, I just watched that. Yeah.
Oh, is that right? There you go. Yeah, Jack the Ripper. And apparently he was hanging out with the Vorlons and made his way to Babylon 5. And it's nice work if you can get it. But also, the Outer Limits episode, which is called Ripper, which is surprisingly good. And what a cast. You got Carrie Ewells, you've got Claire Sims, Francis Newen, and David Warner.
Oh, so this is the later
yes,
Outer
the
Limits
later one. And
I've not seen that.
It's a nice switch because you have Jack the Ripper is actually an alien who is invading female bodies and basically setting up the guy who is eventually charged with being Jack the Ripper.
Oh, and weird.
So he's onto them, and he realizes he has to stop this creature, but he keeps having to kill the creature, but he kills the woman, and so it looks bad. Wow. It looks bad when the authorities show up.
Yeah.
But I mean, some great stuff. And then if we're talking Jack the Ripper comedy, there's something that I just discovered that is so funny, and it's called The Phantom Raspberry Blower of Old London Town. It is a 1971 episode of 6 Dates with Barker, and it's written by Spike Milligan, and it features the two Ronnies in this extended sketch about Jack the Ripper. And if you're familiar with Spike Milligan, he has this genius for absurdist comedy, and that's all the way through this thing. And instead of Jack the Ripper killing people, he stalks people and gives them the raspberry.
So like Bedazzled kind of idea.
Yeah, it's super funny. Like, it was way funnier than I thought it was going to be. So anyway, There you go.
Cool. Well, I know Courtney briefly mentioned A Knife for the Ladies, which is also known as Jack the Ripper Goes West, which is a strange 1974 Western horror film with Jack Elam and Ruth Roman, but it's worth checking out. It's got a crazy, bizarre, demented ending to it. The Jack the Ripper miniseries with Michael Caine, I've never seen, but I'm curious about that because it also stars Jane Seymour, Armand Assante. That looked really cool. We've not seen that. And also, I hear it's terrible. There was a 1985 shot on video horror film called The Ripper with Tom Savini showing up as Jack the Ripper, like at the very end. But I've not seen that. But so he's, again, the Ripper's, Jack's everywhere.
Oh, and let's not forget The Veil, the Boris Karloff hosted show with Neil McGuinness is in that one. And that's fun. So, yeah, the Ripper is always with us.
Yes. And if you want to subject yourself to the Ripper, that was, oh, God, boy, this takes me back. Right after we got out of USC, a friend of ours directed a movie for that producer. It was the first one called Terror at 10 Killer. And
I've heard of that.
On videotape, yes. And that producer is the son of Loretta Young.
Wow.
Wow.
And they made a big deal out of the fact that they were going to have Tom Savini come in and be the Ripper. And I think he only worked 2 days or something on it. But all those things, they were actually shot on videotape.
Wow. Yeah, I think what I heard, like Tom Savini literally...
Dreadful.
Yeah, I heard that he literally, like, apologized to people at conventions for being in that movie. But any incarnation you can possibly think of, though, it seems like Jack Ripper's always up for some new interpretation.
Has anyone seen a play or a musical? I know they're out there.
No.
Oh,
that's for the next
several
episode.
On Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but Jack the Ripper, not so much.
Every year when I was going to junior college, it seemed like every year the theatrical department would do A Christmas Carol. And every year they try to do a different opening, where it starts out, there's fog, and then there's like little people selling hot dogs or something, to show old London town, Charles Dickens. And one year they decided to do a Jack the Ripper murder at the beginning.
Really?
Wow. And I remember thinking when it started, the guy came out, there was a woman that came out with little flowers and goes around a corner, and the guy comes out with a cape and a knife, and I went, wow, that's just one way to start a Christmas Carol.
That's
Merry
crazy.
Christmas.
I don't know
Yeah.
if they've repeated it, but that, it was a community college type thing. So
Scrooge meets Jack the Ripper. That could be
There
cool.
you go. Boiled in your own pudding.
Write that down. That's good.
And there's a children's album. I've mentioned it on the show before. It's called Monster Mash Sounds of Terror that the Pickwick label put out. I had it when I was a kid, and every track is like a mini movie. It's like an audio movie, and you've got Frankenstein's monster, you've got Dracula. There is a Jack the Ripper track, and it's a Cockney, like a cop on the beat who's introducing it, and then you segue into the sound effect of a woman being mutilated by Jack's knife. And this is on a children's album from like 1973.
Oh my God.
I absolutely loved it.
I don't know this one.
Yeah.
Do you still have it?
Oh yeah. Monster Mash Sounds of Terror. And you can probably hear the whole thing on YouTube.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, I know where I'm going after this show. Well, Courtney, thank you so much for being with us today. I mean, it's first of all, I'm so excited for this project that you did, and I can't wait to see this.
Yeah, we'll post links about it, when we post the episode for sure.
But it's like your knowledge on this is just amazing. Thank you so much.
You guys are terrific, and paying any attention to this crazy little thing that we did. And I've been pulling the milk wagon for a long time, and this is my first movie made in 19 years.
Wow.
Has it been that long?
Yeah.
That's cool. But it's cool that it's back to Full Moon too, and they're coming out with this new, series of film.
Everything kind of went a little bit full circle, and I hope other stuff will be coming up. There's always stuff on the boil, but we like to talk about what's definite and new. And so Primevals and me joining you guys for Right Hand of the Devil. I turned in my Right Hand of the Devil booklet this morning.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
How great is that movie, huh?
Well, I'll tell you what I did, and I didn't want to, and Sean and I discussed this. And I didn't want to just repeat what you guys had discovered in your own
Right.
research
Right.
and all that stuff. So instead, I wrote a thing about Ralph Brooke and how he became kind of the Z-level go-to guy, the Mr. Fix-It for Jerry Warren and Richard Kuna and all of these people. And he died very young. And in fact, Right Hand of the Devil, which he co-wrote, was the last, and he was also, I think, the production manager. That was the last movie he worked on.
Wow.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And you know, Matt, his brother is Walter Brooke, the actor, The Graduate, Plastics. That's his brother.
Yeah.
Right. And he,
I
and he
see
was
it. I
in,
see it.
And he was in a Bloodlust too.
Yes, he
Huh?
was.
Right.
And shot by Richard Kuna, of all people. And Ralph ended up marrying, and good for him, he stole Jerry Warren's wife.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Bree Murphy, and they got married, and then she became, you know, really she was the very first woman admitted to the ASC for cinematography.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we
wow.
talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
her in
We
the
did talk
commentary
about
too.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, and
Yeah.
Friday I am doing the extra featurette for Reptilicus.
No way. Who's putting that? I mean,
Who's putting that
yeah, it's putting
out?
out again.
So, a Vinegar Syndrome.
Really?
Oh,
They're doing
wow.
Reptilicus?
Oh,
Wow. Nice.
Well,
I'm
I
there
I
guess-
for
can't
that.
wait. I don't
Can't
know.
wait.
I need to know more information about Reptilicus.
That
I do.
Sid Pink and the whole deal. Yeah.
I would have loved to have done Reptilicus, but I see, you know, they went for the gold standard.
You got it right. Yes.
Mr. C. Courtney Joyner. I can't.
Yeah,
So-
it'll be fun. And, you know, I'm still looking in my mailbox for my Rondo. I guess it's going to show up there pretty
Oh,
soon.
yes.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Tell me
Congratulations.
about it.
sir.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
yes,
you
that's
know.
amazing.
Well, it's me and Daniel Griffith. You know, he produced and what did he do? Yeah, he produced and directed. I produced and wrote it as we you know, so they gave it both to us.
But
And
I
I'll
felt
tell you-
we felt part of that because we did do the commentary for a giant Gila monster. You know?
So,
it's
and
kinda like-
just for listeners, Courtney, can you say what that Rondo was for specifically?
it was for best DVD extra.
So it's great that we did the commentary for
Actually,
the
Film
Giant Gila
Masters,
Monster,
Giant Gila Monster, that's
and
right.
so in a way, even though we didn't necessarily win for best podcast, I still feel that we have a little piece of a Rondo because
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
because
you
of
do. Yes,
Courtney.
you do. You know, you guys always do so great. And I think the first thing I ever bugged you about might have been, was it the Boogeyman will get you?
no.
Wait
Probably
a minute.
was it Old Dark House? The Castle's Old Dark House, maybe?
I think so. Yeah.
I think that was the one. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And that
Yeah,
was
we're-
one of those things that, so, you know, we love doing the commentary, but then once we're done, we get that free box set, which is so great.
Yeah,
And
that's a great
so
set.
much good stuff on there. And so, yeah,
Well,
we will, I mean, we're forever in your debt. The amount of support that you've given us through this process.
Yes,
of
for sure.
doing
Over the years,
commentaries
yeah.
has been just great. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Over the years in every way. But I mean, singing our praises to whoever would listen when it comes to this kind of thing is beyond
Yeah.
appreciated.
Well, you're very nice. But I'll tell you something real quick about that box set. We got kind of a backhanded compliment. I won't say who the reviewer was. And, you know, it was okay. But they said in their review that we had used the black and white TV print of Old Dark House.
Right.
And I said, no, we got that print directly from Technicolor, and it was even restored. And it looked gorgeous. I mean, the movie's a movie. But
It did. It
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful.
And so I called him on it, and he actually sheepishly admitted that the box set was still on his desk, still shrink wrapped.
No.
Yeah. So he had to kind of
Wow.
write a additional review,
Yeah.
backtracking all of his criticism and everything
Busted.
else. But yes.
Wow.
It
So,
just makes you
yeah,
wonder how often that happens.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it? Was this Tom Weaver?
No, it wasn't.
I'm kidding.
Unfortunately.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, unfortunately not. But yeah, that was, that's the thing. Guys, we do this work, and sometimes it's, when the discs are reviewed and whatever, sometimes it's not even mentioned. Other times it is, but it's also the status of the movie, and
Sure.
we're trying to shine a light on maybe something that's been previously ignored or
Yeah.
not given its due or whatever. And I want to thank you guys particularly because you do so much research. You really do a great job. And this is the thing, to anyone who's ever, hearing this or has listened to a commentary, these things are a hell of a lot of work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've said before, like, we like the fact that almost that we get sometimes more obscure movies, that these unsung titles that nobody's heard of or nobody has any information on,
And sometimes, and Sean, sometimes people think, oh, you just record and start recording. You watch the film once. No. We watch this many
and we
times.
we
have
dig
to do all this
deep.
research. And then when we record, we do a lot of recording. Sometimes it's like 3 times the amount of information, and then it has to be edited. God bless Matt for doing this amazing job of trying to take the best things to put it and fit it and have it timed up
and context.
A lot of work goes into these. And I'm very proud of what we accomplished. Like, no one's getting rich here on these, but we love to do it.
Yeah.
And I also do like how we expose a film that maybe has fallen through the cracks.
Well, Courtney, did you guys hear about Film Masters apparently has made a deal to release some of this stuff theatrically?
Wow.
Yes.
Is that right?
So so some of these films that they are putting on Blu-ray might get like The Terror, and I think they even mentioned Right Hand of the Devil. Like,
I'd
people
love
to
to
see that
on big
theater.
screen. Yeah.
Me too.
And that's the thing. I don't know what Phil Hopkins and Crystal, what exactly their plans are for some of these titles, but they are acquiring more stuff.
Yes.
And they always do a restoration, and they put a lot of effort into these things.
Yeah.
And which also makes it, I think, very valid for us to contribute to these releases, because they're not throwaways, even though they might have been once public domain titles or things like that. And again, it all goes back to, let's shine a light on something that has not been scrutinized really before.
Right. For sure.
Because let's face it, guys, the toughest thing in the world, I remember when Daniel and I, we got Verano, yay, when we had to come up with an approach for a documentary on An American Werewolf in London. And we did this whole thing about Universal werewolf movies going back to 1913, all this stuff. But man, that was a hot potato. What has not been covered about that movie?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
True.
doing
That's the trick.
Right. Yeah. But whereas some of this other stuff, that's why Film Masters is so cool, because you're right. It's so many of these titles public domain that you've seen a million times in horrendous transfers.
Oh,
but it's literally giving new life to these films, and whether or not they're always the greatest movies, it's part of cinema history. It's like, put yourself back then, like, wow, somebody made this thing. Like, it's fascinating.
And for some folks here who don't have rondos, each one of those Blu-rays that comes out, it feels like a rondo. You know what I mean? It's being part of history.
Yep.
And look, guys, here's one thing, because there's been a lot of press about this. Oh, well, I just record my streaming and all the rest of it. And now people are turning around going, wait a minute, I recorded this movie 3 years ago. Where is it? It has evaporated off the disc.
Yes.
Or
right.
it's no longer on the site. And that's it, baby. You want it, you got to have that physical media.
Someday, 200 years from now, aliens will come down and our civilization will be gone, but they'll find these Blu-ray commentaries and they'll be able to piece together our society through our Blu-rays.
Yeah. My approach is always like, I want to set up the situation for when, the bombs drop and I'm in my little shelter and I've got my generator and my Blu-ray. I want to have all my viewing for the next 20 years set up.
Right.
There'll be no streaming then. It will be just what I have on physical media.
But then at the last minute, your HDMI cable breaks. You go, no, it's not fair.
It's not fair. It's not fair.
And this piece of advice, by the way, everybody, is coming from the only other man I know, perhaps in Los Angeles, who also has the 400-foot Super 8 sound version of the Seahawk.
That's true.
You and me, buddy.
Yep.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Well, guys, what do you say we raise our glasses and
Yeah.
thank our wonderful guest, C. Courtney Joyner, as we went through this crazy discussion of Jack the Ripper.
So you're a saucy one.
Saucy Jack.
Time for a listener shout out.
Shout out.
Shout out.
Shout out.
This goes out to our pal and longtime listener, Rich Schaefer from Alexandria, Virginia.
Woohoo.
All right, Rich.
Rich.
Rich has once again purchased the Monster Party T-shirt from our
Yeah.
eBay
All
store.
right.
Representing once again. And I'm guessing, Rich, since you wore out the last one you bought because you wear it every day, that you needed a fresh one. So we appreciate your representing. We appreciate your patronage. Thank
Always.
you so much. And Larry, I think you also have a shout out.
I do. Like you guys, I've mentioned this before that I got my master's degree at the American Film Institute, also known as AFI. And just recently we had our 20-something class reunion. And it was great to see a bunch of my classmates. And I ran into one of the screenwriting fellows there, Stephen Wright. And Stephen has done a program called Alan the Dog. Like, you can look it up, you can check it out. But Stephen came up to me and he said, "Hey, Larry, I was doing some research on a script I'm working on about like puppets and stuff. And I came across Monster Party and you did this episode about spooky puppets and stuff." And he goes, "You guys are a wealth of information." And I started to listen to all your other episodes. I even bought I bought some shot glasses from you guys. So I'm a new listener. It was great. I was like so grateful. And it was so neat to see one of my classmates is listening to Monster Party podcast. So Stephen, thank you so much for being the listener. Thanks for buying the shot glasses and keep listening, because we got a lot of other great stuff coming. So thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
And when you finish that script, if you get that thing sold or made, let us know. We'd love to have you on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or be in the next thing you make.
Right.
And Matt, I think you have something as well.
Well, Shawn Sheridan was checking out our Facebook message board, and he hit me to this message from a listener named Joe Papa. Now, Joe Papa used to be in a band called the Gravetones. Come on. If that's not a Monster Party band, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
And he sent us this message. It says, "Mostly directed towards Matt due to his musical taste, but my old band, the Gravetones, had a horror bent in our music. And way back in 2006, we put out an album with a song about the movie Devil's Reign. I hope you all enjoy, and thanks for all the fun shows." Now, you can find this song on YouTube. So just look up Gravetones, Devil's Reign, and it is a kick-ass fucking song.
It is.
Shawn, right? I mean, come on.
It is. It's great. It's great. It's driving hard rock, and they sample dialogue and audio from the movie,
It's
which
so
is
good.
awesome. Yeah.
It's completely, it's like I have this little area in my brain where metal goes, where good punk metal type tracks go. And this just fit perfectly in it. I was just like, oh my God. So now I'm going to check out all the rest of their tunes. So thank you, Joe Papa.
And let's quickly remind our listeners that we will have a booth once again at Monsterpalooza in Pasadena.
Yes.
May 31st, June 1st, and 2nd, that weekend. So we would love to see you there. Buy your tickets, book your hotel, come on out. But we'd love to chat with you.
That's right.
But do it quickly because you only have a few days. Do it now. Run.
Now, if for some reason you can't make it to Monsterpalooza, don't worry, because you can also buy Monster Party merch on our eBay store, which is Monster Party Store, easy to remember. There are t-shirts, there are shot glasses, there are the Monster Party PPE cloth masks. And there's the legendary Monster Party cap, the ball cap, with many, many stitches. With the embroidered Monster
A lot
Party
of
logo.
stitches.
A lot. Let's just say a lot of stitches.
I think we've really established that there's a decent amount of stitches.
There's no shortage of the stitches.
We've got some stitches.
And if you happen to be a Patreon supporter of Monster Party and buy something from our eBay store, we will throw in free surprise goodies, courtesy of our friend Jason Lindsay at Biff Bang Pow Toys and creature creator extraordinaire Ted Haynes.
Like the Ripper, two very sharp individuals. I'm sorry.
Now, I'm guys, I'm so excited about Monsterpalooza coming up, and I've got a whole suitcase packed with all the stuff I have to bring. You cannot expect me to retain what this Patreon thing is all about.
Of
I'm
course
too
not.
distracted. I'm too distracted. What is this Patreon thing all about?
All right. Well, much like the way the fascination with Jack the Ripper is never ending, Patreon provides Monster Party bonus material that is never ending until we decide to end it. Now, we're talking bonus audio episodes featuring topics like what monster tastes the best. We've also got our special Patreon only shows like Monster Party Masterpieces, our various Toy Time episodes, and our behind the scenes convention footage, which is always fun. We've got our video diary of Japan, which is like being in Japan only on video. And if that wasn't enough, we've got vintage sci-fi and horror fiction collections edited by our resident Lyscarian, John Bordeaux. And that's just the tip of the Ripper's knife.
Wow. Well, it sounds wonderful, but I'm
It
saving
does,
up
doesn't it?
I gotta say, I'm saving up for the upcoming Blu-ray of Reptilicus. So I don't know if I got something
As you
such a
should.
luxury. Such a luxury. It's got to be kind of pricey, huh?
Well, okay. Let me put it this way. For the price you'd pay for a vintage copy of My Jack the Ripper Ice Pirates / fiction, you could become a Monster Party patron. And that price is just $5. $5 a month.
What?
That's crazy. I mean, you can't get a Saucy Jack commemorative trick knife souvenir for that price.
No. Yeah.
true.
I don't think we'll ever be able to get one.
Well, I can't pass that up. How do I join this wondrous thing called Patreon?
Well, all you got to do is you go to patreon.com, you go to Monster Party, you click join, and the next thing you know, you'll be as happy as Alan Moore with a royalty check.
Well, count me in. And hey, let's remind everybody that we are also on social media. We are on Facebook at Monster Party TV, YouTube, also Monster Party TV, Twitter, now called X, at Monster Party HQ, and Instagram, also Monster Party HQ. And hey, wherever you're listening to us, find a way to send us a review. iTunes would be a great place. And would love to hear your thoughts, and we will read your thoughts on the air.
And we won't just read your review. We'll then clear you as a possible Jack the Ripper suspect. We're still waiting for your review, Lewis Carroll Estate. On that note, I am Matt Weinhold.
I'm Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Strothe.
And I'm James Gonis.
Keep America strong.
And watch anything involving Jack the Ripper.
And if you happen to be a Freemason, see you at the meeting.
Never talk about the meetings.
All right, we're going to let Courtney in on the fun.
Cool.
Here it comes. Here it comes. See
Walking
Courtney
down the
Joyner. Walking down the street, see Courtney Joyner. Can you hear us? Courtney?
He's a script writing Courtney Joyner.
Script writing son of a gun.
He worked for Vincent Price, who said you don't do shit. See Courtney Joyner. He
They
worked
say
for
that
Roger
Courtney is a
Corman.
They say that Courtney is a bad mother. Shut your
Shut
mouth.
your face.
Just talking about Courtney.
No, we were actually talking about a different Courtney, but whatever. That's fine.
Courtney Love.
Courtney. Oh, yeah.
Oh, is she all
She's-
there?
Of course
She's a
not.
bit
She's never been
nutty.
all there.
Never,
She's a
yeah.
lunatic from the beginning to the end. I watched a little interview that had a lot of the Osborne people, and they were all,
Yeah,
Sharon Osbourne hates her, of course.
yeah.
And they're
Right.
telling all kinds of crazy stories. And then, of course, what's the other one? The daughter.
Bean, is it Frances Bean?
No, the daughter of Sharon
Oh,
Osbourne.
yeah. Shoot.
Oh yeah.
Kelly.
I know
Kelly.
Kelly. Yeah. Mhm.
And she, of course, was the one defending her because she met her once and said something nice to her. And that's fine. I get it.
I think she has this thing where she feels like she has to be on or loony at times, and it's like, don't force it. Don't.
I think that on part is
Yeah.
on heroin.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so too. And that's why we love her.
That's why we love her. Courtney is still, I don't know, trying to come in. I don't know what the
He's
deal
in
is.
Limbo. He's neither
what we
dead
got
nor
here.
alive.
Anything?
He's somewhere in between.
You guys all made it. There's no reason why he shouldn't.
No.
Maybe he's got connecting problems.
Don't we sometimes have connecting problems? That's what's wrong with the world today.
Sure. I
That
have lots
is.
of
Yeah.
connection
That's
problems.
what the world is today.
Wow.
Ball of
Mu-
connections.
Musical tonight.
Oh, we're going to get sued. Dippity dippity doo. Boy, I've never done as much fast research on Jack the Ripper ever.
Me too.
It was actually quite fascinating, man. I mean,
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
able to catch. Yeah,
I
it's cool.
I don't know if you guys got this, but so there were over 30 suspects. I always thought they had it down to 4 or 5.
Yeah,
But no. And
Well-
then there's this but the funny thing is there are these people like, and this is something for the show, the things about the royalty and stuff, but there's always stuff to disprove that. They go, well, that's been looked at, and if that's the case, well, where were they on this particular date? And yeah.
And if you look up, what's the guy's name? Gull?
Yeah,
Go.
that guy.
Gull.
And
He apparently was a fucking saint when it comes to all this work that he did.
but he also was kind of old. That was the thing, and that's the character that they used in.
They always use. They use
Not-
it in Time Cop.
Okay,
apparently.
but they used it in From Hell too.
From Hell,
which
and
is
then also in, I think, because I didn't get to watch this again. Murder by Decree, I know I think they reference him too, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I love that movie. That's a great movie.
with James Mason
Yeah, he's a good Watson.
and Christopher Plummer. Yeah, he is.
They're really good together.
I just rewatched the pea scene. He's got a
Squish my pee.
Yeah, yeah.
and
Yeah,
you know what? I can relate to that. You think, hey, I'll squish the pea. Now you have it. It's like, no, it's not the same. I like to have it in my mouth and feel it pop in my mouth.
Like it's
and now
up in my mouth.
you've destroyed it. And I understand that. I feel that guy. I feel that.
It's the best part of the movie.
Well, it's like, how about, gee, I want to eat my carrots, and you just stick a bunch of carrots in your mouth, chew it up, and spit it out. Here, and it's like, well, they've just been in your mouth. I don't want to eat those carrots. Anyway,
I think they were making a different point, weren't they?
well, it's
He didn't want it. He didn't want the food pre-chewed for him.
No,
There's a misunderstanding about
But
what.
don't touch my food, though. Basically, I think we can all.
That's an
I think we can-
overall rule. Hands off the food. I learned that from Shawn Sheridan. Don't
Yes,
touch
you
the
did.
sandwich.
Oh yeah,
No.
that's right.
And look, in fairness,
It was
and
a
no one can
violation
blame
of
him.
my.
I can't-
No one
privacy.
can blame him. You know what? Everybody gets excited in a different way. I
Especially
get
about a
excited when I
sandwich.
see an anemic sandwich. I want to touch it to make sure that it's
That's true.
real.
Anemic.
Yeah, he did not like your sandwich, Sean. He thought it was a.
Yeah, it was a conservative sandwich. It's true.
It's not, and it's no,
Not even
it's nothing. It's nothing about his character. It's
No.
just simply a matter of, much like Fleetwood Mac.
Because let's
I
face it,
don't
his
understand it.
His character's like a rainbow, a sparkly rainbow.
That's it.
Sean is like
It's
a
just
sparkly
that-
rainbow.
Yes.
Wow,
When did this
like
happen?
like Twilight.
It's just that his turkey.
Well, speaking of
sandwich is just
Jack the
very-
Ripper, though, Speaking of slashing and lacerations, you know
Yes.
those electric trimmers used to trim bushes and trees?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was on the roof last week or so, and
Uh-oh.
there's one big tree kind of overhanging onto our roof, so I was using it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to use it with two hands, of course.
Right.
Of course.
But I kind of
yeah.
stretched myself and kind of lost
Yes.
balance, and
Oh,
No. Sean.
here, let me give you a look.
Oh, are those
It
stitches?
was like a Tom Savini movie. It was like
Sean.
I was up in the ladder. I had to climb down and go, "Hey, Gina,
Wow.
I cut myself," and she's like, I'm like, "It's not that bad," and she's like, it's like gushing blood all over. So I had to get 22 stitches.
22
Oh.
stitches. Wow.
Yeah,
Oh
so
my God.
but it'll be a cool scar across. It was just one moment of being dumb and not.
Yeah. Yeah. Not me,
stretching
but I
myself.
mean, the fact that you're laughing about it now, as we are.
Yeah.
I'm no.
the-
I haven't got
you
to
can make
laughing
up
yet.
any kind of story you want for this. You could,
True. Yeah.
you know.
Actually, I saved a baby and a puppy from a burning car,
Right. Yeah.
which was
Uh-huh.
hanging off a bridge.
Yeah.
Wait,
how it
what?
happened.
Is that real?
No, that's the story I'll say. Instead of that, I was.
Have you been
Oh.
keeping
let
up,
go of
Larry?
my-
See, you know what happens in conversations is there are sentences and then some sentences that go before those sentences,
I don't want
leading
Sean
you to understand what is happening in the current sentence.
I don't want
Come
Sean
on,
to
Larry.
fool me. I want his real story, and I'm not going to say to him, "Oh, that's a stupid thing, Sean." I'm just, "Oh my gosh, thank God."
But you
didn't
missed the
get
part where
yeah.
I said you could make up any story you want. So you were just cutting
Exactly.
me out.
You know what that would
Yeah.
mean? You would be
Yeah.
like an action figure if you had your fingers removed. That you'd be
Yeah.
just with the one thumb. At least you would have your thumb.
Well, you know what
Yeah,
it's
so
like.
it was
It'd be like, you know
close.
how like when you get a G.I. Joe with Kung Fu grip and it's a
Yes.
chilled one?
Yes.
The rubber degrades and then
Yeah.
those fingers just kind of go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was luckily
the
that was a
thumb.
graze and not like it literally could have chopped
Oh
off a
my-
It
couple
could have
Oh
fingers.
my
chopped them all. They
God,
probably could have
Sean.
put them back
Wow.
on though.
Yeah, probably. But
And you would have
Yes.
been like Luke Skywalker with the.
But
that's
you
right.
know what? But you know what, Sean? It's possible that not all of them would have taken. Maybe
Yeah,
only
it's
2
true.
or 3
It's
would.
like Michael Shane and
Look at
you
this,
and
like
Mr.
Michael
Glass half full here with the
Yeah.
fingers.
it would be like Michael Shane.
They probably
and,
all wouldn't have taken,
in
Sean.
Shape of Water. Remember in Shape of Water? Like
Yes,
you
I
break your
do.
fingers off
And they
could start to rot.
smell.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have yellow.
A lot of your
pus on
fingers
them.
don't like you, Sean. So a couple of them would have went, fuck this.
Yeah, really.
We're going to start a life on our own.
Wow. Dang, Sean. Look, who among us hasn't done something, we're not thinking it all the way through.
Oh my
Do
God.
something
That's my
stupid.
entire life.
Yeah, and you're still alive.
And I'm
You know,
still alive.
exactly.
So- amazingly so.
And you still have all your
Yeah.
fingers and toes and appendages. And,
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
That's true.
driving a motorcycle on acid in the fog at night. I am still alive.
Yeah, really.
funny.
Patrick Galloway on the back.
Yeah. See, it's funny. It's like what I'd hate is for Matt to like slip on a grape in his house.
And that'll
break
be
his
how I
leg.
go.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
yeah.
It's like
Right.
and Matt's lying there
You'll-
going, I
Really?
was on acid. I was on acid riding my motorcycle in the
You'll somehow
Oh,
accidentally decapitate
so
yourself in
unfair.
the bathroom. Yeah.
No,
I know,
remember
right, yeah.
I was trying to remember, it was a class we were discussing this thing about how Evel Knievel, has broken
yeah.
every bone in his body, and how
Sure.
terrible it would be is like what happened when he died is like, and he slipped in the bathtub. And what's the weather like in Greece, James?
It was starting to get hot when I
Yeah.
left. It was in the 70s pretty much every day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was nice. Some cool evenings. Gained about 15 pounds,
Ate a lot of
Right.
baklava or
as I always do there.
Did you eat a lot of baklava?
I had one baklava.
Uh-huh.
I ate a lot of moussaka.
But it was 40 feet long.
it's the one word I know. And
Drank
Do you
a
have
lot
any
of
grape
beer.
leaves?
Yeah,
I
plenty of
love those things.
Plenty of those.
I love those
Ugh.
things. No, it's got rice thing stuff in
Yeah,
it.
It's got, yeah.
yeah.
You have to
It's
get through
yummy.
this slimy piece of
Yeah.
awfulness to get to the rice.
No, it's healthy and it's delicious. I love it.
Hey, look,
they used to have
anything
these
that'll
giant,
get vegetables in you, I'm
They used to have
happy.
a giant canister at Costco that you open it up. It's
What?
like filled with all those. I used to.
Oh my
love,
God.
you know,
Costco
Are
used
they
to
in
have
liquid?
those? Really?
Yeah, huh?
Yeah.
Are they in liquid?
It's a
boy.
big can, and they're stuck perfectly in like little circles. So
Like
you
fingers.
and they put oil in it or whatever, and so you take them out, and oh my god, they're so.
All right, here we go.
yummy. I love this
Here's
thing.
Courtney now.
Here we go.
All right.
Awesome. Welcome.
Yeah, it's good to see
Welcome,
you.
Courtney.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing this, and we're excited about your project.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it actually got made. It's going to be streamed. This is great.
Fantastic.
You know.
And everybody says it doesn't look like a full moon movie. How about that?
Oh
Yeah.
my! Hey, all right.
The trailer definitely looks cool. It looks like it's a cut above. It's definitely
And
looks
it
cool.
went- that damn thing popped over to Rue Morgue and then Bloody Disgusting, and it got shared just hundreds and hundreds of times
Cool.
Nice.
to all of these sites, a bunch of stuff in Japan and all that. And I was like, whoa.
Wow. Nice.
And I think even old Charlie, who directed it, is very surprised.
Cool. That's awesome.
It's great.
So, Courtney, what we thought we'd do is when we get started, you know, we're going to say, okay, what this is about, Jack the Ripper films, and we're going to give this great introduction. And Sean, if it's okay, I'd love it if we could talk to Courtney about his Jack the Ripper film.
Well, yeah.
first.
Do you want to do a little bit of Jack the Ripper background first, or go
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
and then go into Courtney's movie, and then we can look
Yeah.
at other films? Okay.
Yeah, so
sure.
Courtney, I just wanted to do just I mean, I know Matt hates
Like a
it,
very
but just a brief Jack the Ripper. What is it? Who is
Well,
it?
I
You know,
don't hate talking about the origins of Jack the Ripper because not everybody everyone knows
Yeah.
the broad strokes, but there's some minutia in there that's quite fascinating.
Oh, so you're not going to give me everyone knows that Jaws is about a shark. You know,
No,
I'll tell you
only
what,
when it's
there-
obvious.
Your segue, if you want to start with Jack the Ripper and then go to me, and then we'll go into The Lodger and Ivor Novello and Jack Palance and Hugo
Yep.
Free, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And that's just off the top of my head.
yeah, but Courtney, I want to make sure that we talk about your thing first, because if we
Right.
go 90
Well,
minutes
this
or
is-
whatever, I
Here,
want to be able.
What's your segue?
Okay. You know, when you have me on here, I'm suddenly producing your show.
No, I love it. Someone's got it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, guys, that would be a kind of a neat thing, Larry, is when you see the trailer, there is a moment where the little girl is in the room and the body is on the bed behind her, covered in blood.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That is actually Kathleen Widows's true crime
Photograph. Oh,
It's one of the very first ever taken.
Yeah, I
Wow.
thought so. It looked like because I've
That's
seen
cool,
that
yeah.
picture, and
It-
and I thought
And
That's
what
what I
he did to her is just astoundingly horrible.
yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Well, Mary Kelly too. Yeah.
Yeah,
All of them.
absolutely.
Well, as
Just
it gets
incredible.
worse as it goes along. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would just, Jesus Christ. So anyway, if you were going to do like real, background of the real Jack the Ripper, then maybe that's a good springboard.
That'll segue to your quadrant. Yeah. Yep.
I'm thinking like we would do like a brief 30-second thing is what I'm thinking of.
Look.
You know,
Well, let's
Whatever
not
it is.
overproduce this. Let's
Let's do it.
maybe have a
I'm sure that's
conversation and then see how it goes. We'll talk a little bit about Jack the Ripper and then we'll get into your movie. I have faith in all of you, and I think this is going to go very well.
Me too.
okay.
Well, I'll shut up now.
All right. Well, I'm ready anytime.
And so
do it.
Courtney
Yeah.
and Courtney sounds okay for you, Matt.
Courtney sounds good. Yes.
Yeah. And then we
Sometimes,
just have to be
Courtney,
careful.
we've had some problems recently with, like, if we're talking and somebody comments on somebody else and it's too close to when they're speaking, sometimes there'll be a lapse, and
Or mutes that person. Yeah.
And so I haven't been noticing it too much with you.
No, I
So
think
that's good.
we'll try. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm aware of that, so I'll definitely try not to interrupt, which for me is a major.
That's for all of us, a
Get in
challenge.
line. Really.
Yeah.
We are interruption party.
It's our new name.
But
right, let's do it.
what? I got a good feeling about all of it. It's my new leaf. A good
Oh, that's
feeling
a
about
nice-
things.
That's a good new leaf.
And it couldn't come at a worse time.
No, it's true.